Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Former special counsel Robert Mueller testified for roughly 5 hours before two committees today. NTD's Holly Kellum has the highlights of his first testimony before the House Judiciary Committee.
The Judiciary Committee will come to order.
Heading into today's hearing, House Democrats were candid that they hoped Robert Mueller would breathe life into his report for the cameras and create public support for further House investigations of the president.
We will do this work because there must be accountability for the conduct described in your report, especially as it relates to the president.
Mueller concluded that the Russian government interfered in the 2016 presidential election in sweeping and systematic fashion, but that there was no collusion with the Trump campaign. Mueller declined to make a decision on whether Trump obstructed his investigation, citing Office of Legal Counsel policy that a sitting president can't be indicted. The Justice Department ruled that he did not. Instead, Mueller said the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system.
Is that impeachment?
I'm not going to comment on that.
But if Democrats were hopeful that Mueller would give juicy details not in his report, they were likely disappointed. The Justice Department asked Mueller to stick within the four corners of his 448-page report, citing presidential privilege, which Mueller agreed to do.
I can't answer that question. This is outside my purview. That's beyond my purview. This is one of those areas which I decline to discuss.
Instead of submitting his testimony to the committee, as is customary, Mueller submitted his full report. He relied heavily on it throughout the hearing, though at points he seemed not to be that familiar with it.
When you talk about the firm that produced the Steele reporting, the name of the firm that produced that was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not familiar with that. And
what I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him.
Several Republicans questioned the role of the special counsel and whether it adhered to the principle of innocent until proven guilty.
The special counsel's job, nowhere does it say that you were to conclusively determine Donald Trump's innocence or that the special counsel report should determine whether or not to exonerate him.
Did any of the witnesses have a chance to be cross-examined?
Did any of the witnesses in our investigation?
Yes.
I'm not going to answer that.
Mueller said when he and his team were writing the report, they didn't think it would be released to the public. Nevertheless, others said he shouldn't have written anything at all.
When you knew that you weren't going to prosecute him.
Well, you don't know where the investigation is going to lie, and the OLC opinion itself says that you can continue the investigation even though you are not going to indict the president.
The White House released a statement shortly after Mueller's first round of testimony, calling it an epic embarrassment for Democrats. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
And more on Mueller. For many who hold their breath for a bombshell from Mueller today, the testimony felt flat. Mike Gallagher, one of the most listened to radio talk show hosts in America, said that he was bewildered by Mueller's unwillingness to exonerate the president, even though he found no evidence.
Prosecutors don't do that. They say there's a crime or there's not a crime. Mueller seemed to say, well, there's no crime. We can find no basis of a crime, but we didn't exonerate him either. If we could have, we would have. And Congressman Radcliffe said, where did that come from? And honestly, Mueller just stammered, he stuttered, he had no explanation, he barely managed a quick, well, this was a unique circumstance. Oh yeah, that's the because it's Trump rule, which seems to affect a lot of the things that happen in the Trump era, and it didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, his testimony has been described, even by Chris Wallace of Fox News, as a disaster, not only a disaster for Democrats, but a disaster for Mueller himself. I mean, this is a guy who is widely admired and respected by many on both sides of the aisle, and his reputation took a beating today. And so, good news for President Trump, not so good for the Democrats who thought maybe they'd be able to fuel the fires of impeachment because there was nothing there today.
And now to Facebook. A record-breaking penalty imposed on Facebook today. $5 billion. The Federal Trade Commission said the social media company violated its orders by sharing users' information through third-party apps. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on the settlement.
close to 2.4 billion users bring exclusive information to the network. Since Facebook monetizes this information, user privacy has become a major concern. Today, it was fined $5 billion for violating the Federal Trade Commission's orders on privacy.
That Facebook betrayed the trust of its users and deceived them about their ability to control their personal information.
The FTC said the company shared users' information with developers of third-party applications. A user's data would be shared if his or her Facebook friend installed third-party apps. Facebook allegedly knew about this and didn't do anything about it. Its recognition software was also automatically on for many users by default. Besides the fine, Facebook has been ordered to establish an independent privacy committee. It will be made up of directors, which can only be fired by a supermajority of directors.
We do not have the legal authority to remove Mr. Zuckerberg from the driver's seat, but we have imposed a robust system of checks and balances that extinguishes his ability unilaterally to chart the path for consumer privacy at Facebook.
Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg said the changes go beyond anything U.S. law demands, but agreed to them because it will help reduce the amount of mistakes the company makes. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
A federal judge in Washington today decided not to block a new Trump administration rule designed to stop the influx of people claiming asylum who could have got it somewhere else. The regulation prohibits illegal immigrants from seeking asylum if they have already passed through another country to get here. For example, those from Central America who entered via Mexico. The White House implemented the policy last week, and though some groups are saying it's cruel, legally these people do not qualify as meeting the threshold of irreparable harm. One city in California is going to be the first city in the U.S. to ban natural gas. NTD's Eileen Ang in Berkeley to hear what the public thinks.
Berkeley is planning to ban natural gas in new buildings by January 2020. The City Council voted unanimously in support of the city code on Tuesday. This will mean that new homes, stores, businesses, and restaurants will not use natural gas for stoves starting next year.
Let's take it to the streets and hear what the public has to say about it.
I'm all for protecting the environment as long as it's, a proper policy decision and not a political one.
Solar panels obviously are getting better and cheaper. And the battery system is such now that you can store enough.
Others don't think that's a good idea.
I think that it's another way for the electric companies to make more money. If you generally look at it, your electric bill, when you heat your home through gas, is less costly for you.
There's also the issue of relying on one source when something goes wrong.
If you did have power outages, you could also use natural gas to heating and for cooking. And whereas electricity, when you lose electricity, you have no other use except for maybe fire.
Even in a liberal-dominated area, the idea may be too unfamiliar for some to accept. But most agree that if new buildings rely on just electricity, their monthly bill could be much higher. Eileen Ng, NTD News, Berkeley, California.
Now to Hong Kong, where protests continue, and a Beijing spokesperson hinted today that China could use the army to restore order. But an internal source says this rhetoric reflects deeper problems within the Chinese communist regime.
Concern over whether Beijing would use the army against Hong Kong protesters has been in the air since June. Beijing's most recent response to a question on the matter is deepening those worries.
The behavior of some extreme protesters have challenged the authorities of the central government, tested the limits of the one country, two systems principles. As to your detailed question, there is a clear rule in Item 14 of Chapter 3 of the Hong Kong Garrison Laws.
The law he refers to allows Beijing's army to intervene under the request of Hong Kong leadership to maintain public order or to help relieve a natural disaster. Beijing has around 6,000 soldiers stationed in Hong Kong. Millions of Hong Kongers have taken to the streets this summer to protest against an extradition bill. Under the now suspended bill, anyone in Hong Kong could be sent to mainland China for trial and imprisonment. Residents have been accusing local government of selling out Hong Kong. Kong. Police have used pepper spray, rubber bullets, and batons against protesters. Western media has been blaming current Communist Party leader Xi Jinping's tough rule for the tense situation in the semi-autonomous city. But a recent Epoch Times article citing a source inside the party saying Beijing's infighting is the real cause of the chaos and that many officials who represent Beijing may not be completely under Xi's control. The source said Xi's enemies within the party are trying to take advantage of the Hong Kong movement to corner Xi to make mistakes, put him under international pressure, and eventually take him down. According to the source, Xi has asked for no bloodshed, no guns, and no use of Chinese military in Hong Kong. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Boeing reported its largest ever quarterly loss today, diving the company nearly $3 billion into red as it wrestles with a longer than expected grounding of its 737 MAX plane.
Chief Executive Dennis Mueller says that the company may consider further production cuts on 737 as the MAX crisis drags on. Investors shrugged off the loss, but shares lowered by 2.6% after Muellenberg's comments. The world's largest plane maker also reported a delay on its 777X aircraft program. General Electric engine problems have already pushed the plane's first flight into 2020, and further delays are possible. Chicago-based Boeing has been unable to deliver any 737 MAX aircraft since it was grounded worldwide in March. The drastic measure came after 2 fatal crashes killed 346 people in a span of 5 months. The total cost so far for the 737 MAX crisis now exceeds $8 billion, including compensation to airlines for the delayed deliveries.
And now to Japan. With T-minus 1 year to go until the 2020 Summer Games begin in Tokyo, the city unveiled a new countdown clock to excited fans. A performance by Japanese taiko drummers hyped up the waiting audience moments before the clock was revealed at a plaza in Tokyo's center. Fans, sponsors, and politicians came together today to mark the approach of the opening ceremony. The games are set to begin exactly 365 days from today on July 24th, 2020. Park officials at Yellowstone are looking into a shocking incident involving a park bison and a young girl. It surfaced on Twitter.
Yellowstone National Park officials are looking into a video that shows a bison charge 3 people. A warning, some viewers may find the following video disturbing. In the video, an adult man and woman run away while a little girl is thrown into the air by the bison. It was posted the same day the park said a 9-year-old was injured by a bison in the park's Old Faithful Geyser area. According to Yellowstone's Public Affairs Office, she was in a group gathered about 5 to 10 feet away from the bison when it charged. The girl was assessed and treated by emergency medical providers and later released from the Old Faithful Clinic. According to the park, no citations have been issued and the incident is still under investigation. Park officials warn people to stay at least 75 feet away from all large animals. Male bison, called bulls, can weigh up to 2,000 pounds and run as fast as 30 miles per hour.
And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.